economy and hammering John McCain, and yet at a time when he could step up and look presidential and tie this off nicely, he demurred. And I don't know why, from a public relations standpoint, he would do that. It seemed he had the tiger by the tail, and yet he let him go.
Josh, let me go back to you. What do you think it's going to take for this economy to get it back on track? Is there anything anybody can do?
Well, yeah, there is. We can take our hands off of it and let the free market decide what all of these assets are really worth. Let the people who made the bad bets suffer, and let the people that made the good bets, start new businesses and reemploy the people that would lose jobs in this type of downturn. But the main thing I think that we could do as Americans is to go ahead and acknowledge and realize that what happened with the 16th Amendment and the Federal Reserve Act is unconstitutional, and until we get rid of it and go back to what the Constitution says is using gold and silver as money or something like that, have some standard, then we're going to keep having these booms and busts. It's an economic fact, and we need to get off the Keynesian bandwagon and get back to Austrian economics like Americans.
Greg, you want to add a takeaway from that?
Well, Josh would know. He's a small business owner.
You guys know each other. I forgot about that.
Good to see you, Josh.
Greg, yeah. It's been a while.
It just hit me.
He would certainly know. He sees this every day. He knows when credit markets dry up, when lending becomes difficult. And the reality is, and Josh will tell you this as well, the world is flat now. The Chinese own as much of our debt, I think, than any American entity does. And that's what spurred, by the way, the initial Bear Stearns bankruptcy several months ago. It wasn't American creditors coming to the Treasury saying, hey, you guys got to clean this up. It was the overseas lenders that were saying, hey, what are my bonds worth? What are my investments worth? And unless and until you act to shore this up, Mr. Secretary, we're thinking about pulling out on you. So the threat is very real. It's evident. But Josh's point about some stability in the dollar, I think we've gotten away from that. Reagan was a monetarist, meaning that a heavy emphasis on the strength and power of the dollar, and I think we've drifted away from that. And it's neither Republican nor Democrat. I'm looking at a news article here from 1999 when Clinton was in office, where you had Treasury officials and the Clinton administration saying, you know what, this government-sponsored enterprise in the form of Fannie and Freddie Mac could lead to a bailout problem and put it on the backs of taxpayers. So folks saw this coming. That's the unfortunate part, and we can have time for recriminations later. But right now, you need to somehow stave off the bleeding.
But, Josh, you did make it clear that what the president is doing is important. It's an important step.
I made that clear.
No, I'm just asking. I thought that's what you were saying, but I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, and let me go ahead and make clear that I am a conservative.
It's not about that.
Because I don't want to come off like I'm bad mouthing or whatever. But I have to say, in my humble opinion, as well as the opinion of the School of Austrian Economics, it is not at all a good thing. There's nothing about it that makes any sense, and it makes me think that the president doesn't understand macroeconomics in the least.
It's interesting because I'm as a taxpayer, I'm just incensed, outraged. I can't believe it, and I really want some answers, like many of your listeners do, all of your listeners do. And I thought Alan Sloan of Fortune magazine had an interesting prospect. There is more than one way to skin this cat. I think the way it's been sold on Capitol Hill, and I'm no expert in the financial markets, but the way it's been sold in Capitol Hill is, hey, take this 3-page bill. By the way, that's the length of it, 3 pages, and either swallow it whole or we're going to have a meltdown. Whereas some economists out there, and some very smart ones, say, well, instead of buying off the bad debt of the banks, why don't we take the taxpayer money, $700 billion, and buy the stock of the banks and put it in something that's credible and actually worth something, and let the banks, who made these bad loans to begin with, by the way, and let the banks deal with the bad debt, and let the taxpayers invest in something good that can come of this. And then I heard another interesting prospect of, if you want to, if all the credit's dried up and all the liquidity is dried up, why don't we reduce the capital gains tax to zero for the next 2 years and let private investors, private American investors, pump all that liquidity back into the marketplace, get it taxed, get it not taxed at all, and there's your liquidity. I mean, there are a couple. The point here is, and we can argue econometrics, but the point is I think there, and to Josh's statement, there's probably another way, another solution, and unfortunately we don't have the time to review them all.
Is there another way, Josh?
I believe there are a lot of ways, but the main thing that we have to understand is that the government, doesn't have the answer, can't have the answer. We need to act like conservatives again and start talking like this, because the reality is creating more money can't solve the problem of us having created huge false credit and fiat credit, and that's basically what's going on. And you can take the taxpayers' money and all due respect to the economists you're talking with, Greg, but you can take that money and buy equity shares of banks that have run themselves out of business and take the risk of them running themselves out of business again, or you can let them fail and, let capitalism bring back other banks that people might have some real faith in. And another point, I wanted to go back to the foreign creditors. I agree with you. It is a huge foreign problem. Like, for instance, the Chinese and Japan, we hold the gun to their head and make them inventory the dollar, because they have to inventory the dollar to buy futures that settle to cash, like oil futures, for instance. So Japan, who imports all their oil, they have to hold our dollar. Then we go print more dollars, devaluing the dollars we're forcing them to hold. And, you think they want to show up at our bond auctions and buy our bonds when we do that to them? No, I mean, there's a reason people fly planes into buildings in America, and it's not because they hate our freedom. It's because we're stealing from them.
Oh, Josh. Greg.
Real quickly, the counterbalance to the capitalist argument, and I'm a free marketeer myself, but if you stop and think about it, the pushback there is democracy necessarily tends toward decadence and dependency. It's sort of the nature of the beast, and that's unfortunate, irrespective. And Winston Churchill said it was the second worst form of government, and he didn't think he couldn't name the first. But the point there is that these members of Congress, the congressional switchboard, is lit up like a Christmas tree right now, and these folks are saying, "Sweet Jesus, won't you do something?" And then they're also saying, to Josh's point, "Don't you dare do this." But these elected officials feel they need to do something, and they need to somehow. And I guess the way to, I don't necessarily agree with what I'm getting ready to say, but it's a Keynesian model that they want to push. You need to bail these folks out.
Who's winning the PR war right now? Because that's what's important to these politicians.
And the campaigns?
Yes.
Well, I mean, if you look at the congressional approval ratings, they're 3 days out. Congress has slipped even below President Bush. They're at 17 now. 4 days ago, they were at 23. This is approval. Bush is now at 28. The Democrats have done a nice job of pinning this on him. Clearly, Obama has seen a surge of 8 points. His direction, McCain is slipping. I think this move by him to go to the White House and to put country first is a smart one politically as well as presidential. But I don't know if it'll pull him out of this nosedive he's in.
So you feel he's in a nosedive?
I don't want to say a nosedive.
That's exactly what you just said.
I know I just said it, but it's certainly trending in the wrong direction. Let's put it that way. And if I think that much like time helped McCain supporters and McCain, and seeing Obama, and once Americans have some time to study. I mean, if Senator Obama's plan was so brilliant, why didn't they put it on the floor of the House and vote on it? I couldn't tell you what the plan is, but if it's so brilliant, why didn't the Democrats control Congress? Why didn't they just put it on the floor of the House and vote for it?
What we're going to do when we come back with our guests in our final segment, we're going to open the phone lines up open because we don't want to be too selfish here. 1-888-432-1580. I'm Armstrong Williams, Josh Bernard, Greg Chris. We're going to find out more about our guests when we return on the Armstrong Williams Show as we come back with some final thoughts from our guests and from our callers. 1-888-432-1580, and we'll be back.